On his own. The king had allowed a pet elephant loose near Nasrudin's village, and it was destroying the crops. The people decided to go in a body to Tamerlane to protest. Nasrudin, because he had been known to amuse the king at times, was appointed leader of the delegation. So overawed were they by the magnificence of the court that the group pushed Nasrudin into the audience chamber and fled. "Yes," said the king. "What do you want, Nasrudin?"
About your elephant, your majesty," stammered the mullah.
He saw that the king was in a bad temper that morning. "Yes? What about my elephant?"
That is, I was thinking that it needed a mate."
Limits of perception. Carrying some cocks to a certain place, Nasrudin thought he would let them out for a little, allowing them to walk part of the way. They started to wander in all directions, pecking at the earth.
"Oh, fools!" shouted Nasrudin. "You know when it is going to be sunrise. How is it that you cannot even understand where I am going?"
Which way round? A man who had studied at many metaphysical schools came to Nasrudin. In order to show that he could be accepted for discipleship, he described in detail where he had been and what he had studied. "I hope that you will accept me, or at least tell me your ideas," he said, "because I have spent so much of my time in studying at these schools."
"Alas," said Nasrudin, "you have studied the teachers and their teachings. What should have happened is that the teachers and the teachings should have studied you. Then we would have had something worthwhile."
The Milkman's Horse. Nasrudin decided to sell firewood and bought a milkman's horse cheaply to help him in his rounds. The horse knew his old round and stopped after every few houses and neighed loudly. People came out with milk cans and reviled the mullah when they found that he was only carrying firewood. Finally, Nasrudin could stand it no longer, and he shook his fist at the horse, saying,
"Let us get this settled once and for all. Who is selling, you or me? You neigh to announce the firewood, and they attack me for not bringing the milk."
What is it all for? Nasrudin lay under a mulberry tree one hot summer's day, looking at some enormous watermelons which grew nearby. His mind turned to higher things.
How is it, he wondered, that an immense, impressive tree like this mulberry brings forth such puny little fruits? Look at the miserable weakling creeper which produces such huge and delicious melons.
As he was pondering the paradox, a mulberry fell and landed on his shaven head.
"I see," said Nasrudin. "That is the reason, is it? I should have thought of that before."
Pyramid Expert. Nasrudin was sitting among the branches of a tree, sniffing the blossoms and sunning himself. A traveller asked him what he was doing there.
"Climbing the Great Pyramid."
"You are nowhere near a pyramid, and there are 4 ways up a pyramid, one by each face. That is a tree."
"Yes," said the mullah, "but it's much more fun like this, don't you think? Birds, blossoms, zephyrs, sunshine. I hardly think I could have done better."
Where I sit. At a gathering of divines, Nasrudin was seated right at the end of the room, farthest from the place of honour. Presently he began to tell jokes, and soon people were crowded around him, laughing and listening. Nobody was taking any notice of the greybeard who was giving a learned discourse. When he could no longer hear himself speak, the president of the assembly roared out, "You must be silent. Nobody may talk unless he sits where the chief sits."
"I don't know how you see it," said Nasrudin, "but it strikes me that where I sit is where the chief sits."
Anyone can do it that way. An opinionated and small-minded cleric was lecturing the people in the tea-house where Nasrudin spent so much of his time. As the hours went by, Nasrudin realized how this man's thoughts were running in patterns, how he was a victim of vanity and pride, how minor points of unrealistic intellectualism for its own sake were magnified by him and applied to every situation. Subject after subject was discussed, and every time the intellectual cited books and precedents, false analogies and extraordinary presumptions without intuitive reality. At length he produced a book which he had written, and Nasrudin stretched his hand forth to see it, because he was the only literate man present. Holding it in front of his eyes, Nasrudin turned page after page, while the assembly looked on. After several minutes the itinerant cleric began to fidget. Then he could not contain himself any longer. "You are holding my book upside down," he screamed.
"I know," said Nasrudin. "Since it is one of the archetypes which seem to have produced you, it seems to be the only sensible thing to do, if one is to learn from it."